One of the reps told me that he actually doubled the number of deals he closed each quarter just because he had the right messaging against competitors. So make sure that you're very, very clear on what makes you unique. What's your competitive advantage? Companies typically confuse their strengths with their competitive advantages. They're not the same. We're after what makes you unique and different in the market, not what actually helps you stay in the market. I recommend 4 items that you do if you don't have a whole sales team to get into this. Setting up a really comprehensive competitive enablement program is number 1.
Hello everyone, this is Michael Ocean, CEO at Sell Me the Span, and today I'm super excited because I got Hermann Handa on the call. He's the Director of Self-Effectiveness at FCT and the founding member of Revenue Enablement Society. And the fun fact about our relationship, about 3 years ago, I reached out to Hermann and said, hey, I have this crazy idea. I want to build a company around sales, effectiveness, and he's been kind enough to provide tons of feedback, and I wanted to appreciate him, publicly while we are here. But before we start chatting about the topic, I wanted to ask Hermann to introduce himself and tell us a little bit more about how he actually got into sales. How are you doing, sir?
Thank you, Michael. Very good to see you. It's been a while, but it's great catching up again. So just a little bit on my journey. I currently focus on sales effectiveness and sales strategy in finance and insurance, but I'm a former software guy. I'm a former software sales guy. I also did marketing before going into competitive and sales enablement. And most of my experience is, in fact, in SaaS and software, including Oracle, where actually I got my sales jobs, and a few other startups after that, most of whom were either acquired by a larger player or a private equity firm, or in the case of Eloqua, it went public and then was acquired after that. So, it's not a simple path. It was acquired by Oracle, but my Oracle experience is previous to being acquired through Eloqua. And how did I get into this thing called enablement? My very first role after graduation involved competitive intelligence and competitive analysis. This was in the global mobile telecom world. I actually went overseas for the role. I enjoyed it immensely. I came back after 4 years, and when the opportunity presented itself about 7-8 years later, I did go into enablement again because you're helping generate revenue, you're helping a whole team, you're helping the company, and I couldn't imagine a better role for myself. You're actually supporting revenues, you're helping coach the reps, and it is just a fantastic place to be.
Look, for so many people, again, sellers, they like to expand this way. All right, let's go to enterprise, let's go to management. But some others, they want to, grow differently and get into
Correct.
enablement to help other people. So this is amazing to hear. But let me ask you this. How did you actually get to competitive enablement? Because I believe this is a completely different, it requires a completely different set of skills compared just to, regular enablement that as we all know it.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So like I mentioned, I was in sales previously, and I also did marketing. And if you look at enablement, whether it's competitive or sales enablement or revenue enablement, having sales background and marketing background is a perfect mix, right? So I started my competitive enablement journey with Eloqua, and I was hired because I did have competitive intelligence experience before then, and I actually came into the role, and the company hired me thinking that we need competitive intelligence, which typically focuses on competitive strategy. So as a strategic aspect and in a product aspect, like monitoring the competition, what kind of products they're releasing, etc. So you're looking to understand where they're going, right? Mm-hmm. And then I came into this role thinking it was going to be pure competitive intelligence, strategy, and product, kind of more on the technical side of the product. And honestly, 2 months later, we found out that we were losing a lot of deals to this one competitor that was very aggressive, very well funded, out of Silicon Valley, and they've been undercutting us. The competitor was Marketo, right? Our win rates actually plummeted very quickly to under 50%. So just imagine you're the incumbent, and you're winning all the deals. You've created the market, and you're the only time you're not closing a deal is when there's no decision, right? But there's a lot of money flowing into the marketing automation market back then, and companies sprung up from nowhere. And then Marketo came along and quickly found that we were losing roughly 6 out of 10 deals, right? That hurt,
Mm.
right? We were winning only four when we were really accustomed to winning all of them or most of them. So I quickly pivoted from hey, we need to do the strategy analysis, we need to do this product analysis, to focusing the majority of my energy helping the sales reps compete better, right, for the deals that they were in. So it wasn't about we think that they're gonna need another round of financing. Yes, we did that as well, but the focus was how can we sell better against those guys, right? And this is what's now referred to as competitive enablement. I was really arming the sales team with content, messaging, and even training on how to compete in deals against all competitors, but especially Marketo. And are actually quite impactful. When you do focus on this side of competing, on this side of winning, we actually quickly turned it around within a quarter, and we went from our win rates being in the low 40s into the high 60s. And
Wow.
the fascinating thing is you have like 20, 30 AEs. This is millions and millions of dollars that we were actually able to add to the bottom line. And one of the reps, we talked to up to today. He told me that he actually doubled the number of deals he closed each quarter, just because he had the right messaging against competitors. So this was my journey, and uh, every company I've been with since, I do focus on competitive enablement because it can have such an impact, such a short term and quick impact on win rates and revenue.
This is really, really fascinating. And you covered a lot of things, so I have a lot of questions. But
Go ahead.
one point that you said really captured my attention. You mentioned Marketo. You didn't talk about 10 other competitors. So these guys were, taking money off our, table. So maybe there were other, competitors involved, but having the sharp focus on the major competitors and really go deep into understanding how they're actually selling against us, what we
Right.
do actually better. And to me, a lot of companies that I work with, we try to, cover everything that everybody's doing. Like we have 50 competitors. Let's always watch them, and especially if you're an early stage, company, startups, if you guys are fortunate actually founders. It's really easy to get distracted by the fact that someone just released a functionality, or someone just got funding, or someone just hired a new AE. So to your point, we need to have focus, and based on that, let's say competitor that is a major one, we can enable our sales teams to have better conversations, to have better messaging, and this way we don't get distracted trying to cover everything for the market.
That's absolutely correct. And what I have to add to that is you have to stay focused. Yes, you can go after more than one competitor, but it's not going to be your generic sales process or messaging, right?
Mhm.
Simply because if you're selling against a higher price competitor,
Mhm.
you're going to be selling very differently, messaging differently than if you're selling against either a lower price or a freemium competitor, right? So yes, you do have to keep focused and segment your messaging according to who you're competing with. Absolutely.
Interesting.
Otherwise it just becomes too generic, right? And then you want to be everything for everybody, and then you're really
That
nothing
is
for
true.
nobody, right?
So when you're chasing two rabbits, you cannot catch anything. So that's pretty much the concept. That's true. So let me ask you
Absolutely.
this: like some companies, the larger organizations that you mentioned, they have the luxury to hire someone like Irma. You have, engineering background. You've been in enablement. You've been a seller, so you know how to go
Mhm.
about, building a competitive enablement for your team. But how about the smaller companies that can simply afford having someone like yourself? How should they get it started?
That's a very interesting question, and that is actually the reality of most companies that they cannot afford a dedicated resource to competitive enablement. Of course, it helps if you have product marketing or sales enablement because they can run with it, right? It's not such a shift from their role, and what I actually recommend is first of all you have to know what you want to achieve, right? You can't just say, let's do competitive enablement. Well, okay, what do we do? What are we going to focus on, right? So determine your primary goal, right? Who you're going to focus your efforts on, right? And it cannot be generic. It has to be against either a competitor or a set of competitors that are very similar. And then you have to determine what you want to improve and what you want to measure, right? Uh, what is going to be success for you, and the most common metric is actually increasing win rates, and then third, treat it as a project, you know beginning, and assign timelines, and assign an owner, and then measure, and if it works, if it's done well, then you can continue. You can either move on to a different competitor, or a different cluster of competitors, or you can even improve it. But you gotta treat it as a project, and you gotta determine your primary goal at first, and then how you go about it. This is the $1 million question. So number one, you have to get really, really, really clear on your competitive advantages. I don't know if I emphasize that enough, but you do have to get really clear, right? You have to know, what customers like about you, and it's very often not what you're thinking, right? So make sure that you get feedback from your customer. If you're doing win loss analysis, you should have this info on your fingertips, right? At your fingertips. If you're not doing win loss analysis, then start doing it either internally, or the better option is to get a third party to talk to your wins and losses. I found that customers are much more forthcoming with a third party, simply because they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, right? They know if the sales reps calls about win loss, it's not a good thing, right? Because you
Mm-hmm.
just work with them. So if marketing calls, yeah, it's one step removed. It's better, but ultimately a third party will typically get more information out of a customer. And what companies typically, the mistake they make is they confuse their strengths with their competitive advantages. They're not the same, right? We're after what makes you unique and different in the market, not what actually helps you stay in the market. Those are stable states, right? And then second, you need to validate with your customers why they selected you, and why they selected the competition. And I can tell you, and I think it's pretty common knowledge, that it's usually not the reasons that are denoted in CRM, right? The sales rep will typically blame price or blame product, but they never tell you that the competitor ran a better sales process, right? Only the
Mm-hmm.
customer can tell you that. So make sure that you get the customer's voice, because data is data. It's fantastic, but data is only as good as is you know what gets input into your CRM. So make sure that you're very, very clear on what makes you unique. What's your competitive advantage? And then when you have that, when you know why customers buy you, then you're in a position to develop your differentiation messaging. And this is quite a large topic on its own, but I do want to address a key point here. You can start with your features. Customers will very often refer to your features, but you got to take it a step further, right? You have to talk about the benefits, and you have to talk about the value that it delivers. And I find that most are confused, even customers, as to what's the difference between benefits and value, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so think of value as the goal that the customer is trying to achieve. So for example, let's talk about reporting or a dashboard, and if you're selling a BI tool, or any other tool that has reporting in it, your advantage is that you might have a comprehensive dashboard, or an easy to integrate dashboard to see your competitors or see your team's activities, right? And that is a feature. And the benefit is you have all your operational data in one place to look at, right? But you actually cannot stop there. So what, right? So what if you have it? The value is the reason the customer buys you is that you can make better decisions on the fly when all your data is in one place. So you have to touch all of these. You cannot just message at the value level, at the feature level, at the benefit level, but take the customer to the journey of feature, benefit, value, right? And you do have to map this to their pains. And also be cognizant of who you're talking to. Are you talking to a decision maker, an exec, high level, or a user? Because their pain points are going to be different. Their value points are going to be different. So message accordingly. And then finally, with respect to your differentiation stage here, you cannot claim things that you have no proof for, right? So either get a customer story, an analyst report, or a quote, right? And when you have this value messaging, this differentiation messaging, you're in a pretty good place to go out and take it to sales, which is actually the third and final piece of it. And as far as I'm concerned, this isn't where the role for sales or competitive enablement ends, right? This is sales readiness is really where the rubber hits the road. So now you have your competitive advantages identified, and you've created the content that differentiates your value. So at a minimum, I recommend 4 items that you do if you don't have a whole sales team to get into this setting up a really comprehensive competitive enablement program. Is number one, have your talk tracks, right? Have your talk tracks around value, right? Create content for the reps that helps them have conversations, right? Real sales conversations. It should not be out of your marketing brochures, but actual lingo that sales reps would use, that customers would want to hear. So this is one, talk tracks. The second one is objection handling. So it comes up every single time, and no matter how good of a job you do to preempt those objections during the sales cycle, they will come up, right? And your team needs to be ready to address those objections in a uniform way, and not in a way that they make up on the fly, right? And then conversely, it is so important to set traps, to set landmines from the competitors, messaging around their weakness or their deficiencies, right? For example, if the competitor has, say, a weaker integration or a weaker area of the product, you can lead the customer to perhaps do a pilot with the competitor if it's an industry standard to do a pilot, and to explore their integration, and then you do the pilot. And you blow them out of the water, right? But it has to be well scripted and delivered. So if you will, these are minimum the 3 content pieces. So talk tracks, objection handling, and setting traps. But then there's also a fourth one, which is a little bit different, and you're gonna like this, Michael, very much. Ensure that the sales reps role play. Right? This is absolutely critical. I'm a huge proponent in practicing. In a safe environment, practicing your messaging, your sales skills in a safe environment, simply because you cannot afford to have your reps practice their talk tracks in front of a client, right? That will not be very conducive to your win rates if they practice, in live situations. So you have to have the role play. So to summarize, you have to have the talk tracks, the responses to your common objections, traps, and then role plays. So it is not a simple project. I will agree, but the impact can outsize the easily outsize the energy and resources invested into doing a project on helping your reps message against a key competitor.
I love this so much because to me, this is how you get tactical with enablement. You just really broke it down where to start from the top, And when it gets to the rep, your end users, the one that are actually sitting in front of your clients, what is really needed to set them up for success, from the
Right.
content piece to practice, this needs to be planned in advance. You cannot just wing it, especially if you're in a competitive, landscape. Even in small startups, like right now with AI, we see a lot of competitors just popping up every day. So
Mhm.
if you really don't have a good plan, you set yourself up for failure. Do you believe your reps burn leads practicing on client calls? When it comes to giving them one-on-one coaching sessions, you just don't have the bandwidth, so you get rid of them altogether? Or maybe you notice that your team spends a lot of time on non-revenue tasks like taking notes, updating CRM, or drafting emails? These are the exact challenges we solve for other revenue leaders like yourself. With Sell Me the Spend AI Coach, you can offer your reps role-play sessions at scale while automating one-on-one coaching sessions based on your best practices and methodology. Also, AI will take care of all their non-revenue tasks, like note-taking, CRM updates, draft the email for them, so they can focus on constant improvement while you're focusing on one thing and one thing only: revenue growth. If you're interested in learning more about the clients we are working with or use cases that might be beneficial to you, check us out at sellmethespend.ai. You basically mentioned that like some of these functionalities that are tied to pain points for your clients,
Mhm.
we need to communicate not only the value but also the benefits they're getting out of these features. How do we really listen to the salespeople, because they're still in the front line, they get the feedback, but make sure that we are not just releasing features and being reactive, towards what other people in the market are doing.
Mhm. That is actually a very great question, Michael. And I've encountered this many times, especially in the software and SaaS, where the releases are coming really quickly, and their new features are added at an incredibly fast pace. So you do have to keep an eye on this, right? Whether you're in product marketing or you actually have a dedicated competitive team, you have to keep an eye on it, and you have to be ready. But there's no need to sweat every little feature, right?
Mhm.
If a single little feature will not change the competitive dynamic, right? A set of features, they will, right? But again, when a new feature gets released, sales teams love to make a big deal out of it, right? A competitor, oh, they released a new feature, they think the sky is falling, right? But you have to ask them as well. Conversely, when we release a feature, are they going to
Right.
tell you that now because of this one feature, we're gonna beat the competitor into the ground? Right? It's not happening. So this goes both ways. So no need to panic. But when a competitor releases a new module or a significant capability, now that is stuff that actually you need to sweat. You need to
Mhm.
be worried about. And I've got a perfect example here. We had a competitor in my past add a completely new module that addressed a completely different functional area of their organization that actually had power in the purchasing side. So just to recap quickly, our ICP was the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer. Our competitor's ICP was also the CMO, but because they released this what I would call pretty clever new module that targeted the sales team, now the CR was drawn into the conversation as well, and guess what? They loved it, right? It gave them insight into buyer intent, and they wanted it, and the CRO had actually leverage over the CMO to purchase our competitor, right? To decide which vendor they're gonna go with, and we did not have this, so we sweated it, right? But really, what we did is, number one, we reallocated development resources to release a competing module. Right? You have to do that, otherwise you're just going to lose. And in the meantime, of course, you can't release things, new modules overnight. Me as a competitive enablement person, I had to train our sales reps to adjust our messaging to minimize the impact on our win rates until we actually had that capability built. So, the bottom line is it would be absolutely insane to match every single little feature that they release, that a competitor adds. But there actually will be times when you need to scramble. So just evaluate, what's happening within your organization, and then you prepare the sales team according to what action your company and your competitors have taken.
This is amazing. Look, I'm super curious about the messaging that you roll out to your sales team. So just imagine, the competitor just roll out a completely new module, and this is such a fascinating idea just to position the product for, different personas within the same organization. You get multiple, different buyers excited about the same product. So this is really smart. But to your point, we cannot just release a new functionality overnight, right? But you want
Correct.
to make sure that your sellers are ready to communicate that maybe it's an upcoming functionality or something. So I'm just super curious, like how do you enable your sellers by saying, hey, we don't even have a timeline where we're going to launch this because we just heard about it, but communicate that we're going to have these capabilities, or maybe not, maybe I'm completely off base,
Mhm.
so clients don't completely ignore us in the future when we have the functionality ready to go.
Yes. Well, obviously, we acknowledge that it is a new feature and that it's on our roadmap. But then you turn the discussion to how you're better, right? So if you can wait another month or two, and most prospects that have come into the pipeline are not going to make that decision in a month or two. Like if you're late sales cycle,
Yeah.
that might sway the deal. But then your goal is to actually slow the deal down, right? And there are techniques to slow deals down, right? So we, of course, did we win every single deal? No, we did not, because it was a neat little feature that we needed to react to. But obviously, we needed to take the steps to make sure that our reps, understand that, or have the best way to message. And then it was critical to slow the deal down, right, as much as we could, so that we could at least showcase an MVP, um, to our prospects. And again, even if you buy it today and the product is coming in 2 months, let's be clear on that. You're not going to start on it tomorrow. There's implementation, right?
For sure.
And by the time you're ready, we're ready, right? So things like that, we actually have to message, right? It's not a position where you want to be, but what you can do is minimize the impact of the competitor actually, overtaking you in certain modules or capabilities.
So look, we all have competitors, and if you're not selling something extremely transactional, you hear those names. Like you get on a call, prospects and clients are more informed these days. They talk about your competitor. How should we enable our reps not to bash competitor, but still show our unique differentiations to prospects and clients?
Mhm. Well, I mean, competitive bashing is a no-no, right? That just comes out as extremely unprofessional, and more often than not, it will turn prospects off, right? You just don't want to hear negativity about anything. In fact, always give credit to your competitor, right? Always, 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 because guess what? They're in the market, they have customers, and they're doing something well, right? And it's not just you, right? We all like to think that we're the best company in the world, but hey, those guys, are successful as well. And if they're really good at being the cheapest and you're the premium provider, then be open about that, right? And you can message around that. So acknowledge that they do something well, that they're the cheapest, and you can pick apart the idea of being the cheapest, right, or being the least expensive. Now, if you're the least expensive, that's going to come at a cost. You cannot have as much support. You're probably not releasing products as frequently as well. So do acknowledge your prospects, but then set this trap of why not go with the competitor, right? Because yes, they are cheap, but guess what? Your service is going to suffer. Your product capabilities are going to suffer, right? And basically you've not even named the competitor at that point, right? You just went after their basic strength, right? Their competitive premise, and prospects will prospects will make that connection, right? So don't bash. There's very diplomatic ways to talk around their weaknesses, and should they be called out? Absolutely, right? But not in a way that's going to turn off your prospects.
Yeah, this is really interesting what you said. You don't need to badmouth anyone. So if you have some strength that you're aware of, you can strategically mention it. Even to your point, you don't have to really mention all the names out there. And like if you are more premium, it means like faster support, better
Correct.
implementation, and just making those things, bold enough for the clients. If it's really important to them, if they're looking for the cheapest option out there, maybe you're just not a fit, and you need to
Yeah.
accept that. But you can still, communicate your unique value propositions there.
Absolutely, absolutely, and like I said, you always highlight your strengths in light of the competitor's weakness. There's no need for bashing. Very, very unprofessional.
My last question, Herman. Again, larger organization. Most of our audience are from enterprise space,
Hmm.
so it's more relevant to have someone like Herman starting a competitive enablement inside the organization, look at our competitors, build messaging and content, and enable sellers to do better. But for smaller organizations, for startups, and this is for my selfish need, I want to learn from you always. Obviously, you're super busy. You're doing so many, many things at the same time, so you don't have the resources. And we talked about this when at the beginning of this
Yes.
podcast. If we want to focus on one thing to improve, what would it be in terms of like going about having this competitive enablement for your organization?
It depends how ready you are from a product marketing perspective and how your positioning and messaging is differentiated. But I'm always, and I've always been a big, big proponent of role plays. Uh, Simply because in one of my former roles, we had this saying, and we trained our reps to be able to respond to our most common objections and deliver our talk tracks even when they're woken up from their deepest sleep, right? That's how sharp you have to be when you're in front of a customer. So for me, do role plays. Make sure that you don't let your let reps out there loose without them being able to deliver the message and deliver it in a very tight, succinct manner that is the same all the time. And the thing is, one of the worst things you can do is not do it, and then you have 10 different reps message in 10 different ways,
Makes
and then
sense.
you're wondering why you're losing deals, right? So work towards the optimal messaging and ensure that your reps actually are able to deliver that each and every time.
This is really smart because you can go about it in so many different ways. That's why I wanted to hear your thoughts on this. You can just go and focus on product marketing and positioning and messaging and changing the website and rolling out new functionalities. But at the end of the day, who's in front of your customer today? So are you
Correct.
going to lose deals or are you going to save them? So to your point, by having these practice sessions, you can actually help them build that muscle memory so they can handle objections quickly and convey the message so you can turn losing deals to winning deals. Herman, really enjoyed this conversation, and I appreciate you taking the time. Hope you guys actually enjoyed as well and learned something new. If someone wants to reach out to you, can they and how?
Sure, they can. I can be found on LinkedIn. Hermann Handa, Handa is the last name. And yeah, if you want to discuss the topic, absolutely, I'm more than happy to. And Michael, thank you for having me on your show. I hope I provided a few valuable nuggets to your audience.
Absolutely, it was fascinating. Thank you very much. All right, guys. Thanks, Herman. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.